Premium quality football shirts at an extremely affordable price. Sound good? If so, check out the sponsor of today's video, jerseyfifa.com. You can see that I've sent you some shirts and they really are top quality, so make sure to click the link in the description to go find a shirt for yourself or perhaps as a gift for someone else. And you can now use code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. That's code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. I really do recommend their product, so go take a look. Now let's get into the analysis. Cristiano Ronaldo is the problem, is what some people have been saying, but don't worry, I'm far too tactically aware to say something like that. But we do have to admit that Ronaldo's age is a slight issue, and he can't start every match every week. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if Manchester United had a backup striker, but for some reason Cavani never seems to be available, so personally it seems pretty clear to me that United needs some form of striker to be signed this summer. Now, the dream option would probably be Haaland, but realistically, with United needing so many signings this summer, they probably can't afford to spend too much money on just one player, so they'll probably have to try and look elsewhere. Now, rather than put these players in a certain order or say who I think United should sign, instead I'm going to make 3 or 4 points on a few different strikers so you can decide who you want, and also let me know if you want a part 2. So the first player that we're going to look at is 22-year-old Swedish striker Isak, so let's break down a few of his strengths and weaknesses. So one of Isak's main strengths is his movement off the ball, and in particular his ability to get on the blind side of defenders, which then allows him to get in behind the opposition's defence to try and latch onto a through ball. This is something that Isak has been displaying ever since he broke onto the scene in the first team, and I think it's quite impressive for a striker at such a young age to have this ability and his awareness to exploit defences in this manner. As well as going in behind to stretch the defence, Isak also has the ability to go the other way as well to move towards the ball, from where he's pretty comfortable receiving the pass into feet to link up the play in the middle third. I think this is something that Manchester United will be looking for in a striker, simply because it's kind of the modern way that a striker is expected to play these days, although it is an area that Isak could still improve slightly more. Isak's ability to hold the ball up is of course helped by his impressive physique, and standing at 6'3" tall allows him to get his body in between the opponent and the ball, and his physicality on the ball is extremely impressive. So if we think about his role at United, then I do think that a manager like Ten Hag would like a player who is able to hold the ball up in this way, and occasionally act as a bit of a target man, so it is something that should be considered. Lastly, being a striker, there is an expectancy for goals, and despite having some difficulties this season, Isak is normally pretty good at getting the job done in front of goal, and he tends to get most of his goals in and around the opposition 6-yard box. Isak's numbers this season simply haven't been good enough, and it will put off a lot of fans, but he has had seasons with 16 and 17 goals in the past 2 years, and if you think about it, that is quite impressive for a young striker. So overall, Isak is a bit of a physical monster. He stretches the defence well whilst also holding the ball up as well, although his link-up play does need a little bit of improvement, and he also needs to find the back of the net more. Next up on the list is probably the most in-demand striker around Europe right now, and that is Uruguayan Darwin Nunes. So again, let's take a look at his playstyle. So for me, Nunes is at his best when his side are on the counter-attack, and he's very good at stretching the play by running the channels, and he really seems to enjoy making these runs out wide before then looking to drive forward. This is something that we don't really see from strikers quite as much these days, especially at the top clubs, but I would probably compare his willingness to run the channels to the way that Lukaku used to enjoy playing just a few years ago. If you look at the build of Nunes, you'd probably assume that he isn't particularly quick, but he is actually deceptively fast, and it's this extra bit of pace that allows him to run the channels to stretch the play, going in behind the opposition's defence. Again, this is something that United might be interested in because they haven't really had it over the past couple of seasons with Martial, Ronaldo and Cavani, so Nunes would certainly offer the side something just a little bit different. Again, the big question is, can he put the ball in the back of the net, and the answer is yes, and in several different ways. He can score with his left foot, his right foot and with his head, which is an excellent weapon to have. Nunes has already managed to grab himself 26 goals in all competitions this season, which at this stage of the season is really phenomenal, and it's what has made him so sought after this year, but does his game have any real weaknesses? Well, as with any player, the answer to that question is yes, and for me his weakness is his technical quality when he's on the ball, and his passing and hold-up play can be a little bit sloppy when he's trying to link the attack together. Obviously this weakness will make teams hesitate because in the modern day players do need to be comfortable taking the ball in tight situations, and this isn't something that Nunes can really do, but he is at an age where he can still develop. If he was to add this to his game, then I do think it would make him an all-round striker, so I do think that a few teams around Europe will be looking to bring him in this summer, and it's pretty clear to see why based on his form this season. Next up on the list is 23-year-old Nigeria and Napoli striker Victor Osimhen, who is yet another player who has been grabbing a lot of attention. Like we saw earlier with Isak, one of Osimhen's strengths is his ability to stretch the play with runs in behind the opposition's defence, and he really loves playing on the shoulder of the last man before making these runs. As I said earlier, this is something that United have missed over the past couple of seasons, and Osman would certainly bring an extra level of athleticism to the Manchester United attack, which I do think will appeal to the club. As well as going in behind, strikers also need to be able to go the other way as well, dropping deeper to try and link up the play. But to be honest, this is an area where Osman struggles slightly, and his game certainly needs work in this area. Ultimately, Manchester United need an all-round striker that is able to do a little bit of everything, and Osman doesn't offer this right now, although again he is at the age where he can certainly develop this side of his game. But let's get back to the strengths of Osman, and he is another player that offers excellent threat in the air. He's a great target in the box to swing crosses into for him to really climb in the air before heading the ball into the back of the net. We can see in this picture here that Osman is hanging in the air several feet above his opponent, and if he was to rotate in the squad with Ronaldo, then it would allow United to play a striker with similar threat when it comes to attacking these crosses. One thing that really makes Osman stand out from a lot of other players on this list is his work rate out of possession, and he's a player that is more than willing to put in the hard yards, pressing the opposition defenders relentlessly to try and win the ball back. Again, this is something that United have missed in recent years, and I do think that any manager coming in the summer will want a player that is willing to put this effort in off the ball, and that could put Osman ahead in this department. Overall, I think Osman looks like another top young striker who has a bright career ahead of him, although as with every player on the list, there are parts of his game that need improvement and development in the near future. Next up on the list is the first player that is familiar with English football already, and that is England and Everton striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So what are his strengths? Clearly, when we look at Calvert-Lewin, we can see that one of his strengths is his physicality, and ever since he was a young striker he has been using his physicality and presence to harass and bully a lot of opposition centre-backs. Again, this could be something that would interest someone like Ten Hag because of the way that he has used Haller this year, and the other bonus is that Calvert-Lewin is already used to the physicality of the Premier League, which certainly gives him an advantage. Calvert-Lewin's impressive physical attributes continue with his speed and willingness to cover a lot of ground, and in a similar way to Darwin Nunes, he can often be seen making runs into the channels to pull the opposition out of position. Again, this is something that he's been displaying ever since he made his Everton debut, and it's these physical attributes that Manchester United have typically prioritised when it has come to transfers over the past 5 years or so. This physical presence continues to be an advantage to Calvert-Lewin when it comes to playing in and around the opposition's penalty box, and it of course makes him a great threat in the air, rising above centre-backs to get on the end of crosses. Calvert-Lewin is probably the best player on this list when it comes to attacking the ball in the box, and again it is an advantage for him that he is already used to playing in the Premier League and facing the same centre-backs in English football. One area that Calvert-Lewin needs to improve is his goal scoring consistency. Last year he had a very impressive campaign, scoring 21 goals in all competitions, but he has also had seasons when his goal return simply hasn't been good enough. Calvert-Lewin's finishing did significantly improve when he was working closely with Duncan Ferguson, so perhaps working with Cristiano Ronaldo could potentially help him to take his finishing to the next level and improve him as a player. Overall, Calvert-Lewin's physical attributes are there for all to see, and is certainly his main strength as a player, with the technical side of his game lacking slightly, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The last player that I want to look at in this video is 22-year-old Lille and Canada striker Jonathan David, who's been impressing over the past few years. Now David is probably the one player on the list that really likes to get the ball into feet in deeper areas before then looking to carry the play forward, and his dribbling is probably unmatched when it comes to the others on this list. Whereas a lot of the other players on this list use their physicality to link the play, David tends to show more of a technical side to the game, although at times he does need to be a little bit less selfish and release the ball earlier. David's technical quality continues to show in the final third as well, and like we've seen already on this list, he has various different finishes in his locker, regularly scoring with his left foot, his right foot and of course his head. As we know, the Premier League is probably the league where strikers get the least time in and around the penalty area, so having this ability to finish with either foot is certainly something that would help any player playing at Manchester United. One of the things that allows David to get into these positions to shoot at goal is his movement, and in this sense he is quite an intelligent player, regularly recognising where the space is before making the move in order to receive the pass. Due to his lack of physicality, this is probably more important for David than it is the other players on the list, because if he goes up against a centre back he can get muscled out of the play, but his good movement helps prevent this. The last thing that I quickly want to look at is David's contributions out of possession, and like Osman he is happy to press high up the pitch to help his side win the ball back, and again this is something that is important to most modern sides. Again, I do think this is something that the next manager will be considering, and it's of course also something that we know Rangnick looks for in a player, and if United are looking to change their playstyle, then David could be a good fit. As with everyone on the list, David has his clear strengths, although again being a young striker he does have weaknesses like his passing, but yet again he is at the age where he could easily develop to become a more well-rounded striker. So that is that. For once I'm not going to come to any sort of conclusion. All these players on the list clearly have a lot of potential and they all have something to offer to this team, but we'll have to wait and see who is brought into the club in the summer. Thank you guys for watching, let me know your thoughts on who United should sign in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.